Hattie, and I am back with another speed build. So today we're going to be building a mansion. It's going to be a Hamptons mansion. So I got the idea when I was going through Pinterest. I was looking at some celebrity houses and I thought this would be a really amazing idea. And I also said that I did want to create an American mansion at some point, and this is it. So I was actually very happy with this house once it was finished, and I'm really excited to do the interior, to be honest. This is only the exterior on this video, but when the interior is here, then that will be hopefully interesting as well, because then I'll get to decorate this really clean, bright home, and hopefully it will have a nice interior to match it. But anyway, what I was doing at this point is I was getting the shape. It's not my shaping that I would usually do for a build. In fact, I did go a little bit off what I usually do, and I don't even know if it looks like I've built it, because the thing is, I used so much roofing that I've never used before, and I used such an unusual shape for this build, but I wanted to do something really different for it. I also did it in an L shape because I really like L-shaped houses. In fact, I've lived in an L-shaped house myself, but I thought for this build it would be interesting to do it that way. And when I was looking at Hampton's mansions, a lot of them did look to be L-shaped, or at least to be a U shape or an N shape, whichever way you look at it. But they looked like they were curved round, and it looked as if they were a little bit unusual when it came to shaping. So I was pretty happy with that. But I'm actually very desperate to go and visit the Hamptons now after all this, so I might have to go and nip near to New York at some point and just go and see what it's all about, because it looks like there's some good stuff going on there. I mean, the houses that I saw on Pinterest were absolutely phenomenal, and I wanted to really style this off a celebrity's house. I can't remember which celebrity I used, but I looked at a lot of houses, so I think by the end I was stuck myself. I think I looked at Jennifer Lopez's house, so I think maybe a little bit of this might be a bit inspired by that. But I think that at some point I will recreate Jennifer Lopez's house and maybe a few other celebrities, and maybe do a celebrity mansion series, because that's something that I'm really thinking about at the moment. But anyway, what I was doing is I was raising up the roofing. I wanted the roofing to look as if it was sloping all the way down, and that is this generic style with Hampton's style builds, or at least that's what I saw in the pictures. So I really did want to do that as much as possible, and that's what I was trying to do here. There was also a little bit of a glitch in the corner, so I was trying to figure that out as best as I could, because it's really difficult to fix something like that, especially when it's just naturally like that because of the game and how it is. And I did try, and I think it looked a little bit better once I tampered with it. This was a little castle bit here, so I desperately wanted a castle bit. I wasn't sure what for. Maybe it would be looking at the seaside, and I don't even know if it's the seaside, I don't know. But maybe some of the houses are. Maybe if they were looking out to the sea, then this would be a little lookout area, I'm not sure. And that would be what it would be used for. So I think in terms of windows and things, I didn't use any archways in that part. I just used normal windows, and I think it will still be nice. And it will make a really good bathroom or a dressing room in those two octagonal rooms there. So we shall see how that turns out. Then what I was doing is I was matching the back side. I was trying to make sure that it was like a triangle all the way down, because that's really important for the Hamptons style builds. What I did as well, and what I was quite proud of, is I went round all the sides with a decking area. So there's lots and lots of decking in this build. So it's quite good if you have Sims parties and things and you want to invite a lot of people, because this would be the perfect party house to have all the Sims on the decking, having a really amazing time. I just think it would be wonderful. So that is what I was thinking there. Also, sort of thinking about doing an American house series. So maybe doing a New York house and a Malibu mansion, a Hollywood mansion, I don't know, but that's what I might do. So if you like that idea, then please let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you've got any other ideas for series that I can do on my channel, then let me know as well, because I want to be sharing one of these builds maybe about once a week, once every 2 weeks, so we shall see how that will turn out. But what I'm going to do probably is have a poll on Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter and you want to have a say in what comes next, then please feel free to vote. I'm going to leave the links to my Twitter below if you haven't found me yet, and you can find me off there. What I was doing though is I was adding the decking at this point. I really want to remember for the next part to decorate a place in the decking for a hot tub. I can't remember if I included one, but I really, really hope that I am going to do that, because a hot tub area on the decking would just look spectacular in this build, especially as the decking is really high. I think that will be a nice effect to have a hot tub area above there. So when it does come to decorating the interior, I will try to remember that. But anyway, what I was doing here is I was adding some of those new romantic stuff pack pillars. I do still call it the new romantic stuff pack, even though it isn't actually that new anymore. It's pretty old, actually. It's been about for about a month and I'm still calling it new. But I think that when new stuff comes out, then I won't call it new anymore, of course. But I really like the pillars from it. They look amazing. They look very Grecian and I love that effect. So I've been using those in a lot of my Greek builds. So I'm pretty happy with those. And I think that what I will do is I will continue to use those throughout the interior. So I will try to create some really lovely overhangs in the house and hopefully they'll be included in that. So we shall see how that will turn out. What I was doing though is I was starting to add the colour. I thought the colour looked really good at this point until I found a better colour a little bit later on, and as soon as I found that better colour I absolutely fell in love with it and I thought that it really suited the build. So it's not too far off from this colour, but I think that the difference is really nice and I hope that when you see it as well you'll think the same and you'll prefer it to this colour. But if you don't, then you can change it back. Of course, it's completely up to you. What I was doing is I was adding some of those new windows that we got from the same stuff pack. I just really adore them. I think they look really good for this build and I've been waiting for a really good excuse to use them, and it just so happened that they really fitted in with this build and I thought that's just what I want. I'm really happy with them, so I think that I will use them again. If I was to do another Hamptons mansion and maybe name it something else, then I will do that. But the Hamptons mansions that I saw online on Pinterest were in this colour, or they were in a white or a grey colour with the same sort of panelling on the sides. So that's just the ones that I saw, but I looked at quite a few of them. So maybe they do tend to be in these colours, I'm just not sure. But I think that the next ones, if I do create another one, then it will be in a similar colour to this. Maybe I will do a U shape though, I'm not sure. But anyway, what I was doing is I was adding some windows. I was trying to figure out what I'd put on the sides here. In the end, I ended up just going for the really big windows, the 3-piece ones. I love those. I think they look really good with the build, so I was happy with using those. And then I was using lots of the long windows on the downstairs floor, mainly because I wanted to have a very open house for this build. I wanted it to be as if the family could be looking out the windows from a lot of different places, and it would be amazing for pictures if you wanted to take some pictures outside of the Sims inside. It would just be a really open house for that, and I think that that is what is really attractive about the area of the Hamptons, because it's a very open area. It looks very safe. I think when I was looking at pictures and things of how it looks around there, it just looks overall just very safe to me. So I think that an open house like this would look really good. Then what I was doing is I was putting a door in at the front. The only door that would go was the modern one that you just briefly saw, that one there. So I actually did leave it like that, because even though it's not intended to go with that window whatsoever, I didn't actually think it looked that bad. And I think that it's the closest thing to what I wanted, and I was happy with finding it. I mean, it's a very unusual choice for a door, but I think that it does go and it does match in a way. So I think it looks good, so I'm gonna leave it like that. But anyway, I was going around and I was adding some white paint to this pillar area and also to the bottom floors, trying to create some conservatory areas, and then I was just adding in some chimneys. I love the old chimneys that we got with the base game. I just really like them, and a lot of chimneys that are with other things tend to be very small. But I think that those chimneys do look nice, and I tried to use them because I think that they match the build too. I was then adding pillars. I add pillars all around the build, mainly because I just think it gives a lovely effect and it makes it pop a bit. It makes it look like it's got a little bit more further detail, so that's what I did there. And I added them to most of the windows, and then I moved the windows up, and then I think on the back area, that's when I went across all the windows and I added loads of flowers and things. So that should be pretty good. Then I was just finishing off adding some more pillars around the sides there and moving up these places. Trying to think back if I've ever seen a house like this. I think the closest house I've ever seen to this build would be when I went to Florida. My dad had a business colleague that he used to work with, and we went to go and visit him. And his house was a yellow home, but it was a little bit similar in the shape to this house. and it had a lot of balconies. Oh my gosh, you couldn't get enough balconies for this build. It had a balcony off every single room, and it was a lovely house. And all I remember about it was my mum was telling me that the curtains were made out of Calvin Klein material or something, which I found really strange, because Calvin Klein, I'm pretty sure, is a make of clothes, and I think that the curtains were made from clothes. I don't know though. I'm not too sure, so I have no idea. But yeah, so that's what I was thinking about that. I was also adding some ivy around the house. I think that the ivy looks nice like that, even though the Hamptons probably wouldn't have a lot of ivy. I just think for the Sims, it's nice to be inspired by something, even though it wouldn't be 100% exact. I don't sometimes want that. I sometimes like having my builds a little bit inspired, so they look as if they were from there, and I like that look. I think I actually prefer that to having a very realistic build, because I do like my builds to look a little bit fairy tale-y, and that's what I wanted for this build. I think it does by the end. It looks as if a fairy would live here. An American suburban fairy. So if you decide to put an American suburban fairy in this house, then of course I'd love to see pictures. If you want to send me them, then please do, because I love to see what happens to my houses after I've put them up on the Sims 4 gallery. I was then just doing the last little recolors to the back. I didn't really change the back too much from there. And then I was on to the landscaping. I wanted to use lots and lots of trees. I don't know why I put the trees down before I even started doing the little plants. I have no explanation for that whatsoever. And apologies if that is a little bit frustrating, because I think that that probably frustrated me as well. I probably got a bit too carried away. Sometimes I get too ambitious with my builds and I start thinking, okay, I just need some trees in now, because I'm missing the trees, because I love the trees, especially in Willow Creek. I just think trees on builds look absolutely gorgeous. And in the environment that it's in, I think because it's absolutely surrounded by trees anyway, I definitely wanted that for the build, so I probably put them a bit too early on though. Now what I was doing is I was putting some of those green plants around. They're my favourite ones and I use them for everything. I was thinking a lot about the plants that I'd want to use, and I knew that I wanted to use a lot of stuff from the Romantic Stuff pack, and I've mentioned that a lot. This build was very much inspired by that Romantic Stuff pack, I think, anyway. I used it a lot. I used a lot of the plants from it and a lot of the items. So I think that without it, I hate to say, I don't think the build would look that great. I mean, if you do decide to still download it without the Romantic Stuff pack, then you can. You just need to change some of the windows and some of the plants. I mean, not all the plants will disappear, but some of them will, just because I used so many of the plants that we got from that. So that's just a little disclaimer for the people that might not want to get it. And what I was doing is I was just going around, I was putting some flowers just in between the bushes there. I used a lot of the wild pink flowers. I thought that pink was a really lovely look to the build, and I think that pink overall is, of course, one of my favourite colours. But I think that for a build like this, I think it goes very well. And I like the whole pink and white feel. I think I included some purple in too. But the pink, I adore that pink. I adore that purple. I love the colour choice that we get with the plants, just because I think that it just looks like a lot of effort's gone into it. So I like that about the stuff pack, and I think it's good. But I'm not going to spend the whole build talking about the stuff pack, because of course that would be really unfair. What I was doing though is, I think at this point I was trying to figure out how big I would have the front lawn. I wanted a humongous front lawn, mainly because when I was looking at the Hamptons pictures online that I found, I noticed that some of the houses were taken from a helicopter view, so almost a bird's eye angle, and you could really see everything and what the house itself included. And a lot of them had these ginormous driveways that were probably miles and miles long. And it would take somebody a very long time to walk up and down there, and I feel sorry for the gardeners. That's all I can say, because those poor gardeners, I mean, they must have gardeners, because there were plants pretty much everywhere on the houses that I saw. It was just amazing to see, but of course it's a humongous upkeep. But I really wish that I could have had that for this build, and I could have made the driveway even bigger to really replicate what I saw on the pictures. And if I could have had a rectangular plot on this plot and maybe had it a little bit further up the house, then I could have really done something amazing with the driveway. But I wanted to have a back garden as well, so that's why I tried my best to have a long driveway, or as long as I could make it, without then making sure that I hadn't got enough room for the back garden. So then what I did is I put in the back garden, and if I had any room at the front, I decided that I would move it back slightly and make more room for that. But I think in the end it worked really well, and I liked the overall layout of the house. I wouldn't change it, I don't think I'd make it smaller or make the back garden smaller, because I think it's perfect for what I wanted. I wanted it to look very grand at the front and have a grand entrance, just like the Hamptons builds that I saw had, but I didn't want to then start missing out room at the back because of that. So that is what I decided not to do. But then this was the back garden, so I did include some features around here. I wanted to include a little pirate ship, so that's what I did in the back, because I would imagine this house to be for a family. Maybe there'd be little girls living here and they would have their own little pink pirate ship, and it would look really amazing, so I thought that would be quite nice for the garden. And I would definitely imagine this would be a sort of house that would be maybe a little bit materialistic. So the family, if they were to live here, they would want the best for their kids, and they would have all these fancy climbing frames and everything that the parks would probably have. And I would love the idea of having a bouncy castle, and this is definitely the house that I would have put it in if we'd have had one of those. I really hope that there will be some sort of mod or custom content for it at some point, because I don't use custom content, and a lot of you know that because I don't like using it. But if we had custom content for a bouncy castle, nobody, and I mean nobody, would be able to hold me back from that one, because I just think the idea would be absolutely wonderful. So we shall see what happens. Yeah, so what I was doing here is I was adding some of those blue ginormous plants just to fill it up a bit. I wanted to make sure that there were some flower beds in this house, because I like to mix it up a bit in my builds and I don't like to have them all the same. And I use a lot of flower arrangements with rocks around, but I wanted to make sure that I was just using some wildflowers around those too, because I think that they still look nice, and I wanted to make it look as if they were flower beds, and that's what the gardener would want for this build. I like the fact that we can have gardeners now. There wouldn't be any plants that the gardener could actually tend though, because the gardener can only tend the plants that you water and harvest. But if you did want that, then you could put them in the flower beds that I put down. So the flower pots, I think I put some of those at the back. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, this was the fountain at the front, so I put a fountain here. It's got all lavender around it by the end. Not to spoil anything for you, of course, because we haven't got to that point yet, but I always like to spoil my builds. I don't know why I do it, but I do. I spoil programs as well. In fact, if I'm ever with a friend or a family member sat down watching something on TV, I am the first to tell them what happened. But I put some really big plants around it, and I put some rocks around it too, and that is pretty much how that bit finished off. And then what I did was I put in some cars. I wanted 2 cars, I think, maybe just 1 actually, and then I included a really, really big gate. Now I have got a lot of questions of how I make those cars. I don't make them, I just enlarge them. I enlarge the toy car, and that is just what I do. So it's no mod, it's no custom content I use, and that is just something that we can't have yet with cars on The Sims 4. I mean, I hope they do it at some point, but we will just never know. But I just use them like that, and I thought enlarging a gate would look really good as well. And then I was just going around the build adding some lights, which were very important, of course, because I want it to look very bright at night. I don't want it to just be completely dark, so that's what I was trying to do here. I went around all the sides, all the back with the same lights, and I also went around all the landscaping. And in between the landscaping, you won't actually be able to see the lights, so they will be covered. But it will just mean that when your Sims are out here at night, it will look like a fairy tale, hopefully, and it will be usable throughout various parts of the day, which I love to do with my builds. And even if I don't always include this bit on my videos, and I do it, it's just because I don't always include it, as it isn't a fantastic thing to watch, of course. But anyway, that is the end of the build, so I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you for part 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you all soon.